Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful individuals. It is another epi of League Unlock. My name is Eric, conducting this Starship Enterprise solo today as we are reliving one of the most iconic runs, maybe even the most iconic run in the history of not just League of Legends, not just the World Championship, maybe in esports history. That's right, we're going back to DRX 2022, where I think at the time we said this will probably never be usurped as the craziest underdog run of all time. It has not to this day, and we're doing a deeper dive to remember just how special, just how magical this run was, and to really appreciate the magic that was around Deft and the boys in the Last Dance, which ended up being the prelude to the prelude of the penultimate Last Dance. We have to go to how they even qualified for that World Championship, going all the way back to the start of this truly anime-level story, and that is within the LCK Summer Split, where this is the part that I think people kind of forget is just how, bad or unexpected even qualifying for the World Championship was for this DRX roster. They closed out the regular season to finish 9-9, 6th place qualifying for playoffs, and they lost to the 10th place Hanwha Life. This is well before the Viper LCK champion level Hanwha Life rosters came around. They were 1-16, and DRX doubled their series win total on the split by losing to them. They go into playoffs on a 2-game losing streak, 2-series losing streak, and then they proceed to lose to Live Sandbox in their opening round. Don't even win a series. They win a single game, and even though we do get some vintage Deft performances in this head-to-head against Prince, yes, this was Prince MVP within the LCK level, which of course was a short-lived era, but we had an epic 80 carry duel in that game for Deft's Lucian, and they end up falling short. But first, the first tiny signs of the potential for this DRX squad. So we go to that regional gauntlet where they started in the loser side, and again, even against KT Rolster, which was their opening matchup, they fall down 2-1, and the forgotten savior of this DRX roster comes before the World Championship even rolls around, and that is, of course, Juan in the jungle, who comes in not once, but twice in this gauntlet to save DRX with their season on the line, down 2-1. First does it against KT Rolster, and a quick side note, KT, this version, also had Vikla in the mid lane. So both Vikla and Prince end up suffering defeat at the hands of Deft and end up going to the LCS. And their careers take a very different turn after that, but maybe it was DRX that started the whole thing. But down 2-1 against that same Live Sandbox, Juan again subs in to force a Game 5, and in that 5th and decisive winner-take-all, you will represent the LCK at the World Championship. DRX completely stomps them. 23 kills in 23 minutes. It was like a 15k gold lead, far and away the most decisive game win, probably out of the entire split, coming at the hands of DRX as they stomp their way to go to that World Championship. And thus, the memes, the tagline, the subheading for this World's 2022 movie, Deft's Last Dance, The Last Dance, is born. And they go to Worlds. Even with that run where, they shouldn't have beat KT, they definitely shouldn't have beat Live Sandbox, they head to this World Championship with pretty much zero expectations. Yeah, they overperformed and qualified. Sure, they're the 4th seed from the LCK, a distant 4th to the other 3 squads that will be representing at this event. As that 4th seed, they're slotted into play-ins, and even though they get the tough group with RNG on their side, this is the RNG, not with Bin, but they are the defending MSI champions. It's Breathe on the top lane. People expect them to finish first, and it kicks off by them absolutely stunted on RNG, and they end up being the only squad to go 5-0 in play-ins, which means they can skip that best of qualification series entirely. Yes, RNG ends up eventually qualifying, but this matchup is number one, it is the beginnings of the absolute insane all-time hit list of mid laners that Zeka embarrasses on the Rift throughout this tournament. It's obviously Xiaohu being the first to suffer that wrath on RNG. And I mean, there were multiple other guys in the playing stage, but in terms of career accolades of players that Zeka embarrasses, Xiaohu is the first on that list, even though it was more the other members that he does it on the Akali on this one. But if you recall the three-headed dragon of champions that Zeka ends up piloting throughout this entire World Championship run, it's the Akali, the Sylas, and I'll even throw in the Ahri on that one for what he does in this tournament. And this, now as Zeka has won a whole lot post-2022 World Championship, I think a lot of people thought this was, I think myself included, this was kind of a one-and-done, one-hit wonder type of performance out of Zeka throughout this run, and didn't think he'd kind of be a mainstay or staple LCK mid laner for the years to come. But we were very much proven wrong, and his Hanwha Life era has, again, reiterated that he is here to stay as one of the now approaching all-time great mid laners in the LCK, which of course is a very stacked run. But 5-0 through play-ins. Again, this little fourth seed from the LCK that could, as this began the fourth seed LCK domination internationally. But they go to that main group stage. Even in the main event, the big draw, we're still not fully taking this DRX squad seriously. They're in a group with the top seed from the LEC. This is the Rogue era where Comp is a top 10 player at Worlds. Even from the Eastern rankings heading into this event, it's Top Esports, the number 2 seed from the LPL. This is the Knight in the mid lane with Jackie Love era of Top Esports, when we still had even more faith in them internationally before it had been completely destroyed. And this is kind of the switch, because Zhuan helped them qualify in a big way, saving them, as we mentioned, twice in the regional finals. He plays the first game of the main stage. DRX loses. They drop to 0-1. And that's it for the main event. He did play a couple games in the playing stage, but after their opening match of the main group draw, it was Piosik the rest of the way. And my God, did this dude level up. And we got to shout out Piosik, because even when Zhuan was subbing in, he was the first guy over hugging him, congratulating him, maybe because he saved the whole team's season, but there was no ego check out of Piosik that he was losing some games or some starts over to Zhuan. So gotta shout out Piosik for that one. One of the ultimate best teammates to have. But he comes back in, and he's much better than he ever was in the LCK as they go on. Yes, they went 1-1 against Top Esports, but they absolutely crush TES in the game that they do win. And again, this is the beginnings of Zeka styling on some people, as Knight, that a perennial MVP, best player in the LPL, finishes a game, final scoreline in a loss, 1-1-0. That's it. And you know, this is the best player in the league, and I know it's on Azir, which this was kind of the beginnings of the memes of Knight's Azir, maybe not being his most comfortable champion, but DRX, I think most people had them maybe vying for second, but more likely third place behind Rogue and Top Esports in this group. But not only do they finish at 4-2, but they end up forcing a tiebreaker against Rogue to finish first in this group. And what do they do in that tiebreaker? They completely stomp Rogue under 25 minutes, and it's Zeka going 9-0 on Sylas. And you can, I'm not going to put Larson in that elite category of mid laner hit list, but Knight was added to that list. So now we've got Xiaohu, and Knight on Zeka's list. Throw in Larson at the bottom as a little caveat, just because he was insanely dominant on that Sylas. And then you're going, okay, so this squad that a month ago lost to a 1-16 Hanwha Life to limp into the LCK playoffs has now made the run through regionals, gone 5-0, undefeated, only undefeated team in play-ins, and finished first in their group against two teams that they should not have beaten, and they demoted Top Esports to not even make it to top 8. Okay, maybe we're starting to take them seriously, and then, oh dear, even as the first seed, who do we draw in quarterfinals? It's the defending world champions from Edward Gaming, and this is where the real anime story starts to line up. And in terms of Deft playing against former teammates, this legit is feeling like a Pokemon level of storyline where you're going up against your other rivals, the squad that won a world championship without you on it in Scout, Mako, and we get to see all these insane teasers, far and away the best teasers of all time at Worlds in the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals. And that's mainly because of the storyline that is Deft and the boys. But again, it's the fashion that they're winning this series. Game 2 is this iconic. Deft goes to end the game on Ezreal. The inhib respawns. You know the history, how it goes. But they fail to win that game when they're, literally one Ezreal auto attack away from tying the series up at 1. They fall down 0-2, but the plot armor is absolutely unbreakable as they climb out of that 0-2 hole to force silver scrapes, and this wasn't the fearless draft era, which means we got to see a whole lot of Silas games out of Zeka and Scout, the finals MVP from last year's World Championship. Yeah, you're in Zeka's notebook as he solo kills Scout. I believe it's 3 times in this game alone. He completely styles on him, ends up getting a quadra kill to kind of secure the full quarterfinals comeback for DRX. And I mean, people were believing in the magic a little bit up to this point, but it felt like this quarterfinals run, taking down the defending world champions in the fashion that they did, not tilting and feeling the heartbreak of losing that second game, bouncing back mentally. They don't even need to sub out Piosik. You're going, okay, there's something magical going on with this run now for DRX to be taking them down and moving into semifinals. It became the first semifinals appearance at the World Championship for Deft since 2014, 8 years before that, when he got pretty swiftly 3-0'd by Samsung White, who was his sister team, blah, blah, blah. But finally, redemption, or at least a shot at redemption, in those semi-finals. The anime protagonist arc continues as now Deft's going up against his other former teammate in Chovy, who he followed to Hanwha Life after their first run on DRX. He just wanted to play with Chovy. Chovy wanted to play with Deft. They loved playing with each other. This is not quite the peak dynasty level of Gen G. This was kind of the beginnings of it, but they still were the top seed from the LCK. They went 17-1 in the regular season, only dropped 5 games total, and were fresh off of swiftly dismissing T1 3-0 in those LCK summer finals. So yes, still a Titan, not as much of the behemoth as they were in World Championships later, but still going to be huge favorites against the magical run that is Cinderella of DRX. And again, they don't even need the silver scrapes for this one, and the absolute war path of mowing down MVPs for Zeka continued as he has 2 of his best plays from the entire tournament, and neither are actually on the Silas. First, we have the Ahri engage on Ruler, and he was pinpoint locked in. This was like one of the best runs out of Ruler that we've ever had, because we go, okay, he's got a legit Gen G roster around him finally. He's been on some bottom feeders, and MVP level out of Ruler, absolute beast, and Zeka finds him time and time again on this series. It is unheard of, even to this day, really, to see somebody individually, mechanically style on guys like Chovy and powerhouses of Gen G. This is the Doran Peanut era Gen G, but Zeka on the Ahri finds Ruler, and then on the Akali, it's like 1v4 engaging. This is unfortunately the beginning of the choke memes, the disappointing World Championship runs for Gen G. So many painful semifinal, quarterfinal losses for them. But really, this is less a Gen G choke and more, look at the plot armor that was coming out of DRX. Look at the magic that was behind them. Even though they kept on winning, it was still underdog status time and time again as they go through these powerhouse LCK and LPL squads. But yeah, Chovy, nobody was embarrassing Chovy to the fashion that Zeka did. And again, to reiterate how insane this run is for DRX as a whole, and Zeka specifically, this is right after Zeka was, in the LPL, playing on BLG, was really a journeyman mid laner at this point, like not a household name by any means, and was expected to get gapped in pretty much every mid lane matchup that we've talked about, especially Chovy, and he comes in and completely dismantles him as the dance is not done yet. And we go to those world finals where, again, the story only, like, it seems made up, it seems scripted, right? This is exactly Ash Ketchum versus Gary for you old heads to go back to Pokemon Red and Blue, because now you're in the finals against the consensus GOAT in Faker, and oh yeah, you went to high school with him. You were in the same class. You were not even the best League of Legends player in your high school depth because you've been in the shadow of Faker for your entire career, and you can even add to that, you have one more former teammate to match up against. Not only is, Faker the main rival that you've had for your entire career, the guy who has pushed you to limits and made you the player that you are, as Deft said many times in any of the teasers for this one, you're also going up against Kyria, who was your buddy in the bot lane. As a rookie, Deft guided this guy on DRX way back in 2020 to kind of, Kyria now, the GOAT support, and as a rookie, he was playing with the luxury of playing with a guy like Deft, a veteran status. So the circle is complete of playing against former teammates. He didn't need 5 games against Gen G, needed it against EDG, the reverse sweep, and we are granted with number one of the most hyped teaser videos of all time, of course, the story of the history, Faker versus Deft. But then we get one of the best finals of all time, which was all about a lot of insane Varus plays around the Baron. It started with Deft getting his very own highlight to steal the first game in this series, and so unbelievably back and forth. Varus, again, a highly contested pick in its own right, but this was in North America, this whole World Championship, and the opening for this one of the loudest receptions for Faker just when he steps on the stage, because a missed part of this whole story is it's the first time that Faker has been back to the World Finals since his heartbreaking loss in 2017, 3-0 to Samsung Galaxy. We know the tragedy, him crying, all these iconic images. So redemption time, the new era. Faker and the Young Guns were ready to capture that elusive World Championship, and Gumayusi looked primed and ready to do it. It's, again, similar to the Ezreal inhib play. Gumayusi comes in, the iconic play where Kadril drops a little bit of an F-bomb. It's a Baron steal out of Guma, and you feel the air be deflated from DRX as they win a team fight, go to get Baron, and Guma immediately steals it to swing the momentum back into T1's favor. Piosik has been missing smites the entire series long, but the only one that actually matters, the only one we'll truly remember, is the final fight around the Elder Dragon, where Piosik does land the smite, and despite some heroic, even at the very last gasp of air for T1, they go for this backdoor, but Kingan's Aatrox, truly a world ender, as we know he would end up picking up those finals MVPs, MVP singular, not more than one, against a Zeus that was just finished completely styling on JDG in the semifinals. So again, the underdog status going even deeper. Zeus was the best top laner in the tournament in the world, and proceeds to get gapped a couple of times by Kingan as the base defense holds on. Absolute heartbreak for Faker in his return to the World Finals, and Kyria for his first ever World Finals at the time. We know how history went from there, but they're shattered. And on the other side, DRX, absolute jubilation as they complete this absolutely insane run in Game 5 against the iconic organization and, all the guys on DRX. We haven't even talked about Barrel throughout this whole thing. The general, the first non-IG the first guy not named Duke, basically, to win 2 world championships with 2 different organizations. And he is more than a highlight contributor to it. Him and Deft absolutely level up. And, Zeka, the final notch on his mid lane kill list, is the greatest mid laner of all time. And in case you haven't been keeping notes, to sum up, Zeka gapped throughout this run Zhao, Knight, Scout, Chovy, and Faker to capture a world championship. And not only is this the biggest underdog run, this is probably the most difficult run that any team has ever had in a world championship to capture it. And Zeka, all-time individual performance, probably still the best. Only Uzi 2018 MSI is comparable. But this obviously set the workings and probably motivated T1 to become that second era dynasty where they go on to win several world championships in a row. But the heartbreak suffered at the hands of DRX is probably a main motivator for them. And what an iconic run for DRX. I like to think Deft did just retire after this. We had the D+ era after that, and he actually stuck around for a couple extra years. But I like to think this was the end. He went on the high, and obviously, guys after this, King and Piosic goes to the LCS. He gets a pentakill, but doesn't really do much. Barrel sounds hilarious. Barrel goes back to D+, but other than Zeka, the career drop-off was very quick for all 4 of these members, but it was really just the coming out party for Zeka to be recognized as an elite mid laner, scratching onto that elite 4 to keep on with the Pokemon analogies, alongside guys like Showmaker, BDD, Chovy, and, of course, the GOAT in the mid lane. But I still think this DRX Cinderella run will be absolutely untouched throughout the history of League of Legends.